Senator Bernie Sanders has gone to the defense of fellow 2020 presidential contender Representative Tulsi Gabbard. So now on Monday, Hillary Clinton, she came back and started talking about how there's a Democratic candidate that is being groomed by the Russians. Of course. Let me give you a quote here. This was on, I think, David Plouffe's podcast. Quote, I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary, and they're grooming her to be the third-party candidate. And added, she's the favorite of the Russians. Now, there's only 4 women that are in the Democratic primary right now that are considered to be frontrunners. Well, okay, I'll take that back. Not exactly frontrunners, but one is, and that'd be Elizabeth Warren. Now, is Elizabeth Warren a Russian asset? No. And Hillary Clinton doesn't think so either. Is it, let's see, who else? Well, there is Amy Klobuchar. Is Amy Klobuchar a Russian asset? Probably not. And then there is, well, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, Russian, didn't think so. And so that leaves Tulsi Gabbard. Now, Tulsi Gabbard has a little bit of a history with the DNC. In fact, she quit her position and endorsed Bernie Sanders back in 2016, has been calling out DNC corruption ever since. So that must be the person, right? So now here's the thing about that, right? So now, is she a favorite by like Assad and stuff? Yeah, it's because her foreign policy doesn't involve doing regime change in Syria and Iran. And those are places, of course, allies of the Russians. Now, I'm also against doing regime change in Syria and Iran. So I guess that makes me Russian too. It's crazy. Now, I have to tell you, I'm not a supporter of Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's good on that issue, but again, I think there are other issues for her that I believe that she's problematic. But I'm not going to get into those, right? But at the end of the day, is Tulsi Gabbard better than Hillary Clinton on foreign policy? Absolutely. Hillary Clinton is a Democratic war hawk. So now Bernie Sanders comes to her defense in a tweet. He said this, quote, Tulsi Gabbard has put her life on the line to defend this country. People can disagree on issues, which I do, but it is outrageous for anyone to suggest that Tulsi is a foreign asset. Completely agree. 100%. So this was the right thing to do. He's absolutely right. Suggesting that one of our soldiers, and this is what I was saying before this, before he came out with his defense of Tulsi, when I was defending her on my own, is that, look, it's pretty gross when you suggest that one of our soldiers, somebody who'd served in the military, spent time in an Iraqi combat zone, would be an asset to a foreign country. I mean, come on, man. There's no evidence to support that theory. So now here's the thing, right? She cites, there's Russian bots and trolls, and then there's, Russian media that is, highlighting Tulsi Gabbard, et cetera, right? Now, is there trolls and bots? Of course there are. Are some of them Russian? Yeah, I don't doubt it. And do some of them do misinformation and propaganda? Of course. But back in 2016, we had these same trolls. Now, these same trolls, and I know this personally, right? So some of these same trolls, maybe with different accounts, heck, maybe even different trolls. I don't know. But there were a lot of Bernie Sanders groups that were infiltrated by these bots that tried to spread their misinformation there. Now, I don't think it was all that effective because at the end of the day, about 12% of Bernie Sanders supporters went and voted for Donald Trump. So 12%. Now, you might think, wow, that's a really, really high number. But think about this, right? 88% of Bernie Sanders supporters, even though she was not our pick, we sucked it up and we voted for Hillary Clinton. As much as we had to shower afterwards, right? We did that. 88%. But again, remember, if you think 12% is high, full quarter of Clinton supporters back in 2008 voted for John McCain. So now, Clinton spokesman Nick Merrill, however, he had a after some backlash, he decided he was going to pull it back. He said that Clinton was suggesting the Republicans, not the Russians, were grooming someone to be a third-party candidate. But look, you can't. I mean, she's the favorite of the Russians, right? Look, maybe we interpreted it wrong, but that's really, really, I mean, open and very, very vague of who she's saying they are. They meaning Republicans, or they meaning the Russians. But seeing as how Hillary Clinton has basically spent all of her time since 2016 saying that everybody's a Russian, and that there's all of this, I don't know, Russia made me lose the election, which is not accurate. Russia did this, Russia did that. And look, did Russia do some bad things? Of course, right? Did they try to interfere in the election by using bots and trolls? Yes, I believe they did. Was there the hacks in the DNC? I believe so. Nonetheless, they are not the reason that Hillary Clinton lost. Her campaign, as I say every time I talk about 2016, was died a death of 1,000 cuts. Many of them self-inflicted. So, and even if that was an assumption, it's an untrue assumption. And I think she meant that it was the Russians. So, now, here's the thing, like, the other thing where, and one of the reasons, other than, of course, Bernie Sanders having incredible integrity and of course, loyalty to people who supported him as well. Because remember, Tulsi Gabbard quit the DNC when they found out that the DNC was essentially rigging the rules against Bernie Sanders back in 2016. She quit the DNC and she endorsed Bernie Sanders. That took, look, I'd say that took political courage, and I give her credit to to this day, even if I don't plan on voting for her. But he's been hit ever since 2016 by that same smear. Even today, I see, mentions basically on donut Twitter and, establishment pages that Bernie Sanders is a Russian agent. He's a Russian asset. Hilarious, because his policies are the very opposite of what the Russian government would want. The Russian government is deeply right-wing and deeply corrupt. Bernie Sanders is fighting to end corruption by getting money out of politics, by the way. That's one of the big things in his campaign. When he came out with that plan, I literally cheered out loud because it's an amazing plan. Again, getting the corruption out by ending the influence of not only just foreign governments, but also corporations and the wealthy on our political process. Is there any other better policy? And he would do so by, of course, instituting an amendment to the Constitution. And so, and of course, that's a difficult thing to do. And there are other measures that he, is going to try to use to end that corruption. But that's one of the big ones. That's one of the biggest parts of this plan to end corruption. Not only that, but you have, universal health care through Medicare for all. Everyone covered. No copays, deductibles, free college for everyone. Protecting our elections. All this stuff. Complete opposite of right-wingers essentially everywhere. And so, I mean, when you think about it, there would be no reason for many in the, the Russians especially, to support somebody like Bernie Sanders. And Tulsi Gabbard says that she holds also progressive positions, and I don't doubt her on at least a lot of them, right? I think I agree with Tulsi Gabbard probably by 85%. And so, now, but again, you have, like I said, Bernie Sanders defending Tulsi Gabbard, and I think it's a great thing. Now, someone else also came out in favor of Tulsi Gabbard. So this is interesting. Donald Trump. Donald Trump came out and also defended Tulsi Gabbard, saying that she was not a Russian agent. So now here's the thing, right? I know Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard are not Russian agents. We know that for sure. But I also, and this is going to be controversial, I don't think Donald Trump's a Russian agent either. Now, I don't think he gets his walking orders from Putin. But I do believe he gets a lot of money. And actually, it's been shown that he has received a lot of money from the Russians. So now, for example, Don Jr. came out and said, yeah, we get all our money from Russia. They must really, really love golf. No, I don't think that's what it's for. Look, again, I don't think he takes orders from Putin. I don't think he takes orders from Russia. Donald Trump don't take orders from anybody. But I believe he has certain financial interests at stake. I also think he looks up to Putin in the same way that he looks up to Kim Jong-un, Rodrigo Duterte, Jair Bolsonaro, as well as other authoritarians. Why? Because he wants to be them. He wants to be an authoritarian. He feels a kinship. He has authoritarian tendencies. And yet when you have that, plus financial interests, plus him not being very bright, it's easy to see why Donald Trump will take the side of authoritarians, specifically, in a lot of cases, the Russians. But to say that Bernie or Tulsi do the same thing is absolutely ridiculous. I think that Hillary Clinton losing to Donald Trump in 2016, I think, like, she lost her mind. Not in a literal, oh, she's completely mentally ill part, but just in, like, now she sees Russians everywhere. And look, I don't blame her. I mean, she lost to a reality show clown that could barely speak in coherent sentences. That would drive someone crazy too. But this is her playbook. And this has some people worried that she's using this, that she's testing this on Tulsi Gabbard so that she can go after Bernie Sanders and maybe even ultimately enter the race. I don't know about that, man. I don't know. I hope not. I hope she stays out. But here we are. Instead of focusing on policy positions like Medicare for all, free college, which has, by the way, propelled Elizabeth Warren, even though she has been a bit waffly on Medicare for all, has called it a framework. So there's a couple of red flags there. But even then, she's running on, I have a plan for that. Here are the plans. Policy is incredibly important. And yet now with Clinton charging in with all the Russia stuff, now we're right back to 2016 and blaming the Russians for everything instead of, for one, actually protecting the integrity of our electoral process, which would actually deter any country, any foreign country, especially the Russians, from trying to interfere in our elections. It's just, I think it's a big distraction and a way to try to get this discussion away from incredibly popular policy. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.